I did it again. I had myself on mute. Sorry about that, family. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online conversation in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care, and being part of that collaboration last year, I have to say now, last year, 2022, and then also in 2021, reached out to over 100,000 fathers and dads around the world, 2 years in a row. So I'm very blessed and highly favored to have that happen. And we are broadcasting on January 1st, 2023, family. It is a brand new year. Brand new spanking year. So I hope that everyone's had a safe and a good holiday. I know there's some people who have had challenges over the holiday season. We have to reach out to them, not only during the holiday season, but all year round. So what we do on most, in fact, all Sunday afternoons, we do something called Black Canada Talking. It's a live online event that provides the Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are of importance to them. And today we're doing a conversation, Black Canada 2022, ... and then Black Canada 2023 ? So if you don't know what we're talking about, we're going to look at the world of Black Canada last year, and then what's in store, or maybe make some thoughts about the upcoming year. Now, before we go any further, last night was very interesting. So last day of the year, and I'm just hanging out, and it just cool, easy, and two amazing things happened. One, I can't really tell about yet because it involves myself and another person, so he hasn't given me the permission to share. But let me just tell you, it's really big for me, and it's going to work through me and through him. It's really big, and it'll help a lot of people. Have to parking lot that. But one of the things I was focused on, and I always say to everyone, please like the Dr. Vibe Show, or subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, and also hit the notification bell. So when we put up new broadcasts upcoming, you get notified, and also like on Facebook. Well, I was focused on a goal of getting 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. And I say early last night in the evening time, I was probably about 15 away, approximately. And then I get a phone call from someone. I'm not going to say who they are. They can, if they want to say who they are in a later date, they can. They said, "Did you look?" I go, "What do you mean, did you look?" I said, "Did you look at your YouTube page?" I go, "What do you mean?" I'm going, what's going on? Like, what is this person talking about? Okay, so I'm going to show you what they were talking about. So, as of this moment, the Dr. Vibe Show has 1,022 subscribers on YouTube. Now, it was over 1,000 before 12 midnight last night. So you know what? When you put it out there and you do things with the right intent, the universe will work in its own way, in its own time. So I officially now have 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube page. I'd like to thank everybody. And definitely, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and hit the notification button, because we ain't stopping. So I have to do something special for the over 1,000 subscribers mark. The other part of it is I need about 350 more hours of views to have enough subscribers and enough views to monetize the channel. Now, getting the views is not as difficult to get, but I still want you to watch live on the replay. So every time you watch, it bumps up the hours viewed. So my goal for that one is by the end of February to have that done. So we're going to have a two-part celebration. I have to think about what I'm going to do for the first part of the celebration, crossing over 1,000 subscribers. And we want to keep on going. But then the second part is when the views come up, the monetization. So we got to do a two-parter. So I want to thank everyone, excuse me, past, present, or future, who has helped by watching, sharing, liking. And even if you didn't like it, you still watched. So it added to the analytics. So if you're watching this platform now, you do know someone that has over 1,000 YouTube subscribers, legitimate subscribers, because there are a few bots on there, but legitimately, definitely over 1,000. But we are going past that. So I just wanted to share that. Very, very humbled about that. So since that's out of the way, let's get to the main conversation topic today. Black Canada 2022, ... Black Canada 2023, ? Now, I'm expecting 3 friends to be on here. One is here. He is on his phone, so he doesn't have his camera on, but he is here. And some of you may or may not know him, but he is my co-host and co-producer of another platform, another conversation I have Monday and Friday mornings called The Morning Vibe. His name is Ryan Knight. He is the co-executive director of the Afro Canadian Business Network. So hopefully he is here with us. Ryan, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And congrats on surpassing the 1,000 mark. I know you had put that out into the universe, I feel like a couple months ago. And
Yep.
so glad to see you hit it. And did you what's next? What's the next goal for
What's the next
2023?
goal? Well, the thing is, I've been told by a number of people that getting to the 1,000 is the biggest challenge. It's now moving on. So I would say 2,000 by the end of the year. And some people say, well, that's not that hard. But you know what? I'm going to say 2,000 by the end of the year. But I noticed some of the people that started subscribing to the YouTube channel last night were people like, one of the people was Sean DeFreitas, who is
Yes.
I had him on a few weeks ago on Black Canada Talking. There were some other people like More Jobs, who's always on the Morning Vibe. So I said
Nice.
fantastic. So I've got to do a celebration. I also got to do a thank you video, but I wanted to put it out there right now to say thank you people who subscribe, but keep on telling people we don't want to stop.
Exactly. And so with subscribers on YouTube, are you able to send them a message? Like, do you know how it
I
works?
can.
Oh,
It's funny. I can take a look at all the subscribers, and I don't think I can individually. I can probably message them if they have in their comment section, but I'm looking out. I'm going to spend
yeah.
message 1,000 people. I think I'm just going to just do a generic, either live or a generic video, thanking all of them.
Yeah, do like Mr. Beast, give a prize to a subscriber that
I
sparks
will
people.
I will do that. I'll maybe give maybe an hour of mentorship time or something like that
Yeah.
to do that. So definitely there'll be a prize out there. And again, well, Ryan will be joining me tomorrow morning also. So I'll certainly mention over the 1,000 again, probably for the next little bit. And then the other thing I can't really share is really big. It's
Nice.
wow. It's a big thing. And it works out fine. It's going to allow me to get more exposure, especially in the United States. And I think this will come out in our conversation today about collaboration. Ryan had a conversation on one of the things we always talk about in Black Canada is the lack of collaboration amongst Blacks in a number of areas, but that's another conversation. Maybe we're going to get to it today. So Ryan,
that might come up tonight too.
I think I have a feeling it it will. And so
Yes.
just doing a retool in here. It's Black Canada Talking, first conversation, January 1st, 2023. Again, the Dr. Vibe Show now has over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. If you haven't, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, like it on Facebook and on YouTube. Not only subscribe, but also click the notification button where you get notified for upcoming conversations, because we have at least, wow, I've got 3 more coming this week, and 2 already posted. Well, one of them's posted for tomorrow morning, myself and Ryan on the Morning Vibe. We also have Wayne Harris, who does our Financial First Fridays on the Morning Vibe, coming up this Friday. And I have another conversation about manhood, I believe, on Tuesday night. So we keeping busy. No, we're not busy. We're keeping positive, productive. So Ryan, some people may not know who you are, who doesn't in Black Canada, but give a little bit of background on yourself, and we'll get right into the conversation.
Much appreciated. And yes, many people may not know. So my name is Ryan Knight, one of the co-founders of the Afro Caribbean Business Network. We work with entrepreneurs of African and Caribbean heritage, really to figure out what stage their business is in, and help them create a strategy and a blueprint to grow their companies exponentially. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I run a company called Detail Ignites. We provide mobile, waterless car cleaning. So we go to people's houses or their offices, clean their cars on the spot without using water, and our plant-based, eco-friendly cleaning supplies. During the summer, we do run a youth entrepreneurship program. So if you know somebody that is in high school, even out of high school, having trouble getting a job in the summer, please send them my way. Would love to show them they have the potential to start their own businesses by running a mini version of our company, Detail Ignites. And always a pleasure to be on with you, Dr. Vibe. We were able to spend a whole year together. I know we started the Morning Vibe partway through 2021, but 2022 was the first full year of our show. So, hey, I appreciate you, and thank you for the guidance and the friendship as well.
Well, right back at you and your family, and it's been a pleasure, and I only see it getting, well, it's going to get bigger.
Yes.
It's going to get bigger.
That is a given.
Again, we won't get too much into it more, but there is conversations on the table with a all Black network, online network in the US to distribute our content down south. So
love it.
More is coming, and I just looked like I got there's another win in my box. It looks like I'm going to be adding another member to my intern team. So that is
solid.
So that, and it works through me because it'll benefit everybody. So Ryan, where do you want to start on our conversation today?
I would love to open with a question around where do you feel, or how do you feel Black media progressed in 2022? Do you feel it progressed at all? Is it stagnant? Did we make any sort of momentum forward and leaps and bounds? I was curious to get your perspective as I share mine as well.
Are we talking Black Canadian media, Black media in general?
I want to say Black Canadian media. I know we can definitely touch on the US media and your thoughts there. I'm not as tapped into, I would say, like the independent media in the US, but yeah, I would love to get your perspectives on both.
Well, what I know the best is Canada, and people are jumping on here. Please feel free to add your comments. Again, we're doing the title of our conversation today is Black Canada 2022. So we're doing a recap of things that went on in Black Canada. You can provide your comments in them, .. Black Canada 2023. So things that, what's the future for Black Canada? Ryan's asking my lens, and a lot of people, I don't answer a lot of questions on this, but hey, you know what? I'm being asked a question, I'm going to answer my best. I think for me, it's a word that came up earlier on is going to be prevalent in this conversation: collaboration. There is still separate, as one of my mentors, Louis Marsh, said, we're all in silos. We are
okay, right.
We're all in silos because you and I know of a number of different media outlets across this, melanated media outlets across this country, and as part of it, I've reached out to one or two, but I've never heard anything back. So there's this silo mentality, neighborhood mentality, not community mentality. Also, we'll see what happens next year. The federal government has allocated $5 million through Heritage Canada for racialized media, which some people go, well, that's
Interesting.
fantastic. But the thing is,
Uh-huh.
there's all different races getting access to a $5 million pot. It's
Ah.
not a lot for if you really break it down, right? But it's a good start.
Mm.
It's a good start in regards to that. But in regards to independent melanated media, and other people can question add on to that, I think there's a lot of different voices, but I think there's not the collaborative, because you can go farther if you have collaboration. Let's take a perfect
Right.
example. Your environment, because I don't use the C word, your environment has collaborated with my environment. So we've spread a message out to a whole pile of people. And your organization, ABCN Canada, you're not a media network,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
You're not a media network, but we found your organization and Dr. Vibe have found the value of collaborating together,
Yes. True.
right? So, there is room for everybody, but the thing is, because let's remember, family, the melanated percentage of this population is 3 point something percent of the Canadian population. Right? So
Right.
we've got to collaborate. We don't have a big enough piece of the pie numbers wise to make things. We have to collaborate and use a collaborative effort.
Yeah, and independently, we're not winning any wars.
Nope.
Like you said, 3.5%. If that's all scattered, and Dr. George Fraser talks a lot about this, and one of his most popular videos is him talking about that web. And you can put a 50-gallon joint of water, tip it over, it just disperses. But you put a pressure hose on it, it can cut concrete. And that's where right now that 3.5% is so dispersed, it has no real power. So when you talk about collaboration and looking at all these different media outlets, if even though they might be small independently, together, it can be such a powerful voice. And because if you look at how powerful something like the CBC is, because if you want to hear that that perspective, you know exactly where to go. If you want to hear the Black perspective, I I would I would challenge us to go on the street one day and say like, hey, if you need to know what's happening in the Black community, where do you go? Just to get people's initial responses, because I'd be curious to see what they say.
That's a good question. I think you bring up a number of things here. So one of the things when it comes to media in this country, media is very heavily subsidized by the government. Now,
Hmm.
you mentioned CBC. CBC is the money to run CBC comes out of our pocket.
Thank you
It,
very much.
it's a crown
Exactly.
corporation, right? So, and then even your Bells and your Rogers and your global networks, which is what's the name of it's not global anymore. It's called something else. It's part of a larger group. I can't remember off now, but even those organizations, they get government subsidies to produce stuff. So
Big time.
even so, people who are not familiar, in Canada, we basically have some major corporations when it comes to media. There's CBC, which is government owned and run. Then there is CTV, big, and was
Hmm.
CT, and then you have CTVA, which is part of a lot of it's part of Bell, which is one of the largest communication companies in Canada. So they're one mod. Then there's Rogers. So we have about 4 or 5 companies that run the media, control the
Yes.
media in
Right.
this, at least when we're talking visual digital media in this country. They get subsidies.
Yep.
So I was asked amongst many people to put proposals in for the next federal budget, and I basically said I would highly suggest that a online Black network gets started. And I told them this is how much it should. This is how much you need to put into it, because another group in our country, and again, I'd like to know, the Indigenous population has their own network called
Right.
APTN,
APTN. Yes.
right?
Yes.
So I don't know again what their percentage of the population is in this country. I don't know if it's the same, higher or lower, but why can't that be replicated for the melanated or Black Canadian voice?
And Tanya Williams from Real World Festival mentioned in one of our meetings that we should really look at that process that they had to go through to get it, because it was a serious fight. And then also, I think you had mentioned talking about starting something, let's say today, we probably wouldn't go down the route of analog cable station. It would be online,
Have to, yeah,
20,
the
right?
quickest way to get something started is online, and it's also
Yeah.
cheaper than starting a television network. So I forgot. So Chorus is the other
Oh,
media
okay.
property. So you have
Yes, yes.
CBC, which is government owned, then you have privately owned CTV, which is the Bell, which is basically Bell, and then you
Right,
have
right.
Rogers, and you have Chorus. So those are the major media players. And in fact, the last three, the ones that are not government owned, the private ones, are the real big players in this country. And they all receive government funding or subsidies to do a lot of their projects. So why not us?
Oh, absolutely. And they know how to leverage government because there's somewhat of a monopoly there with so
Exactly.
few options. They can really dictate how media is run.
But
So now,
so
oh, so yeah.
go ahead, keep on going.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking with who is involved in media at the moment. I wanted to ask you, who do you feel had the biggest impact? Like, and I'm thinking in my head, somebody like Brandon Gomez breaks off from Bell, is able to branch off on his own. I wonder if he feels he had the impact that he wanted to have in the media space. Like, and that kind
It
of,
would be a great, you know what? It would be a very good question. I think maybe myself or yourself or a combination of both would see if we can get him on our platform.
yeah, because that I'd be curious to know what the goal is for the growth. What type of impact does he want to have? And is he on track to do that? Because viewership and hey, YouTube hits and that's all great, but now he can become a real blueprint to how independent black-owned media makes a name for itself and becomes household known, like household name. But now, if it's only just to own your own stuff, I don't think that goes far enough.
See, this brings up a larger conversation in many areas, and great points as always from Ryan. So people may not know the name. Brandon Gomez
Mm.
was used to be a broadcaster on City TV here in Toronto, and I don't know the circumstances. He left. I don't know what
Right,
circumstances, but he left, and he's basically found his own online property. So
right.
and so this ties into a larger conversation. And we're probably going to do a part two of this. Is that when you go off to a larger and on your own, is your intent to have impact or to make money, or can you do both? Which a lot that is a whole bigger question right there. But I think that, and we have to actually we should reach out to Brandon and maybe have him come on and talk about his lens about media in Canada. Now, I'm going to put a pin on that for a second, and that I'm going to go back to a little bit earlier in our conversation,
Mhm.
that I find it always very interesting how I get attention from the United States. And again, I
Ah,
mentioned earlier that
right. Yes.
that I've been approached by a brand new online property in the U.S. And again, I've had the relationship with both the people there for years and years and years, saying, "Hey, we want your content on our platform." And I always find it funny why that ain't happening here.
Hmm.
Like, and I'll even go further back. When I first started this journey, when I had
True.
hair, by the way, that the first major collaboration I had was from a platform called the Good Men Project, which is one of the most viewed
Okay.
websites in the world for men. They get 3 million unique visitors a month and 6 million page views a month. And they said, "We want your content." And none of the people who were at
Right,
the
right,
top of
right.
the Good Men Project look like me, but they found, for whatever reason, value of me putting my content on their platform. And I said, "Sure, that's great credibility for me." But I
Right.
always find it
Yes. I
there's
mean, that's amazing. Exactly.
right. So I'm
Mhm.
still wondering where the media crossroads are. I don't, and I think now again also now if we want government to if subsidize this, and that's a whole other conversation, because I've had conversations with people saying, "Hey, you know what? We just want something on our own. We don't want government money involved.
Yeah, and I always push back against that because, as you mentioned, the big dogs still get government funding. Like Bell isn't ashamed to still go after government funding, and they need it way less than we do.
Yep.
But the way that they use capital and access to capital, I think we always get that skewed because, and I do know when you take government money, you get put into a certain box, and you have to, you know, perform in that box for lack of a better term. So people don't like to be put in boxes, and they're like, "Oh, I'd rather just do it without government and do it without this." But any type of capital that you get comes with a certain type of restriction. And so you have to understand each of those restrictions and understand the game. And sure, people pick the one that they're most comfortable with. But when you dismiss, let's say, four out of the five because you only want to deal with one, now you're restricting four out of five sources of revenue, sources of income. And this comes up a lot in the Black entrepreneurship ecosystem conversations that we have because ACBN, we're funded by the government. There's about 44 organizations that got funded to do programming for entrepreneurs. And then people will question like, oh, but why aren't you starting a bank or why aren't you? And it's like, yeah, the money we got can't do that. But
They don't realize it.
that's what I'm saying. So it's like out of the five, that one that we got, it has specific restrictions. So, but then that's where we have to observe and now start to share notes. We have to start to look at each other and be like, hey, what did you get? Okay, how did you get that? What are you able to do with that? Now, how can we leverage that to do what's actually necessary? In addition to what, hey, you got funded, and I look at our organization and say, hey, we have to do what we signed up to do, and that's a certain box. But we should be able to leverage that. And I feel like we have, in a way, to have conversations beyond just that restriction to say, hey, PACU exists. So when people bring up, can you start a credit union or a financial institution? We can say, we can't specifically with the money we got, but we can leverage our now broader awareness, more resources to support something like PACU, which is the development of the Pan African Credit Union. And that's where you start when you ask questions of the government and say, like, hey, this initiative is happening. One, can we support it? And they'll say no. And then you start to ask yourself, why? When you look at grant applications and you see that line that says you cannot use this grant money to buy land or capital assets, we have to ask ourselves, why do they always put that in there? Because these elements that would actually empower our community are the things that we're restricted against. So then that begs the question, how how truthful is the government when they say that they want to empower and support the Black community? It's always on their terms. It's never on our terms. So I feel like I went off course there a little bit, but my mind is just running because I'm using 2022 as a really big filter in a way, a filter of being able to observe what's happening around me, what I'm involved in, and then really identifying what is actually moving us forward. You know, like what actions am I taking that actually move the community forward, and who's blocking me? Like who is gatekeeping? And that's a big thing that I wanted to talk about today too. Are hey, for lack of a better term, black faces on white power. It's like these people that are put into positions and they're they're the only thing they're good at is telling you how they're not going to help or they can't help or sorry, I sent it upstairs to my boss and they came back and told me you can't do that. Like all these tactics, or they don't even let you talk to the people upstairs, these phantom uh these I'm thinking of banks and their underwriters. You never get to talk to the underwriter. So the people that are just gatekeepers to the actual people holding money or holding the power, 2022 was a real eye opener for seeing who's in place to just, one, like you say in the three, just be a symbol, and repetitive gatekeeping, repetitive blocking of ideas that we have to move the community forward.
Yeah, I hear your points in regards to that. I'm a watcher, and I watch what goes on, and I think that, yeah, the collaboration piece really, melanated people really got to work on that, because it's, the money ain't gonna be around forever.
Hey,
And,
they literally give timelines. Our
yep,
funding 2024 done.
yep.
So there's no like a question if yeah, there's no question of longevity. It is done 2024 unless we advocate and try to get it renewed. But this is what they do to us. They put timelines on everything. And then we accept it and don't ask questions. We don't negotiate. We don't, you
But
know, try to
but
get
here's
better terms.
but here's the challenge, and I'm gonna update on something that collabor. I was gonna say wasn't gonna mention, but I am gonna mention the only black media organization. You know what? I'm not gonna mention. There's only been one black media organization that has collaborated with me. Black Canadian media organization has collaborated with me on a regular basis. I'm not gonna say who they are, but if you've been along my journey long enough, you'll know who that is. I'm not going to say who they are because I don't want to. Other people say, "Oh, well, you're ratting everybody." No, I'm just going to say there's only been one. But if you want to
But
know who it is, you can
this is
contact me.
where data and facts tell the story. People can look through all of your videos and see who you've collaborated with. So it's not even for you to say, they can come up with the answer themselves. Like it's all in black and white. If other organizations or platforms had partnered with you, they would be in your videos or you would have mentioned them.
True, true. I think when it comes to the black media piece, I think one of the really interesting things in this country is government, non-government. Like I said, I know people are on both sides of the fence in regards to media, but and I'd put it out there, whether you're watching live or on replay, how do you feel black Canadians are portrayed in the media? Ryan, what do you have to say?
So now we're talking about how the black community is portrayed, or hold on.
You know,
Actually,
how
give me
how
one
are
sec.
how do you feel the black Canadians are portrayed in the media?
All right, hold on. I was able to stop now. Let me see how my camera is. That's not great. Um, as I answer this question, then I'm gonna go inside and find a bit of better lighting. But oh, how are we portrayed? You know what? So last night I was doing kind of a chronological review of 2022, that ACBN and the events that we've been through, and the picture of Dr. Kerry Yazid that we interviewed on the Morning Vibe from the US, very deep into DEI. I noticed that in the media, there's now been very specific uh, placement of people with titles around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So there's a symbolic representation of our community that there are people that can now teach our oppressors how to treat us better. And every company almost has one now, like I would say blue chip company. Um, Actual stations and media stations have them. They can bring them out now. It's like, oh, we want to talk to our DEI expert about this thing going on. So, and it's funny because our colleague Andrew Bromfield calls it this woke corporate wokeism, and so they can say all the right things now, yet our community is in the same position. There's been killings of young men in our community. Hey, people are dying, but the shootings and the violence still continues. So all this talk isn't resulting in tangible reduction in the ailments of the community. So it doesn't matter what symbolic people are put in place to talk to corporations to make them treat their employees better and have them progress. There's something rooted that's still missing that we're not really addressing. Yet there are organizations that have the mandate to address those roots, those specific things that are ailing the community. I'll point to the city of Toronto has a confronting black racism, no, confronting anti-black racism unit. So that unit should be the most vocal thing that we hear every day. No matter what is happening, they should have initiatives that they're working on that we know about because it's in their report. The report, oh man, has either 15 to 18 chapters of specific recommendations at different themes in the community that we need to all be working on collectively. So if there's 15 to 18 things that are all heavy, so we're talking about like health, justice, education, employment, entrepreneurship, all of these things are heavy things that take full time commitment. This is where now that unit, when I talk to people about that unit, they don't know about it because they're not, man, I don't, I, because people are employed full time in this unit. So they should be full time engaging with all of the elements of the Black community. So when you ask me, how is the Black community being portrayed? I feel like all the right things are being said. But then when you look behind the curtain, all the same things that are missing are still missing. But now they were able to put forward the right words and the right people to calm the flame that started, hey, 2019 and 2020, all these triggering moments that erupt the flame in the Black community. They've now figured out how to douse that flame. And the government sprinkles some money on the flame, some water just to calm us down, and we get quiet. Uh, City of Toronto creates a confronting anti-Black racism unit. We get quiet. Brampton creates a social economy anti-Black racism division. Now the entire Black community gets quiet. We have to really look behind all of these symbolic positions and see what they're actually executing. And if they're only executing conferences, if they're only executing uh, community research reports where they keep talking to the community keeps telling them what's wrong, and not actual tangible infrastructure. And that's a big piece. And when I talk about a bank, when I talk about a school system, when I talk about um, a justice system, our own CAS system, which is Children's Aid Services. When we talk about our own grocery stores, our own what's it, education, hospital. These are all things that aren't even in motion. So, well, the bank, I would say the credit union's in motion, but if you think of having our own school division, our own school board system, or having our own hospital, nobody's even working on this stuff. So it's not even high priority for the people in those teams to be working on. And that's where you would think the confronting anti-Black racism unit in their report where they saw health deficiencies in the community would identify, yeah, there's a lack of um, access to proper health care that is catered to the Black community. So the end game of that would be our own hospitals, similar to Jewish owned hospitals or Jewish backed hospitals that are downtown, similar to Mount Sinai. You can see on the wall all the sponsors, the Bolvik, biggest sponsor. That's their end game. And they have it now so they can build upon that. We don't even have it in our radar as an end game to have these infrastructure projects. So that to me is a big problem. So to finally answer your question, I feel the Black media has put us to sleep, or how we're portrayed in the Black media has put the Black community to sleep, where we feel they're saying all the right things, so things are good. And I implore everybody listen to this that everything is not good. We still have a lot of work to do at the roots, and it's going to take generations to actually see progress.
Thorough answer. So just to reset with everybody, I'm talking with Ryan Knight of ACBN on Black Canada Talking. We were supposed to have two other guests. Both of them told me they didn't receive the link, which is interesting because I did send it. Maybe it went into their spam, but this is going to impact me to we're gonna do part 2 next week. So please, wherever you're watching this now, we're gonna do part 2 and we'll have more friends. Actually, will give us some more time to get people right across the country, to come on and give their lens on Black Canada 2022 ... Black Canada 2023 ? So I think that I really want to delve into the whole thing. And Ryan, you were sharing for the last few moments. That's one of my 3 things: the symbolism piece, the whole area of the from you were describing as the symbolism. Okay, looks like Ryan is on mute here. Okay, so Ryan is having some technical challenges, so I'm going to just continue on. Oh, there we go. Okay, Ryan is with us. Can you hear us?
Yes. Let me know if there's a bit of a delay, but I can hear you well.
No, we can see you vertically, or as they call it, portrait, not landscape.
Oh, gotcha. Does it help if I hold it like this?
No. Leave it.
No?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, there we go. Go back.
Was it better?
No, there, right there.
All right, sweet.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So for the last few moments, then you were highlighting one of my favorite words of these days: symbolism.
Yes.
So, do you feel in Black Canada there's a lot of symbolism?
Oh, 100%. And that's where I've become more aware to it, possibly because I do feel I'm part of it. Like, being in this entrepreneurship ecosystem is a symbolic gesture. Yes, there's money behind it and we have to do work. But before the money even flowed out, the press conferences happened. Remember, this thing was announced back in the end of 2020, and the money flowed a year later, and programs actually started like a year and a half later. So we have to get, and I wrote an article about this called the propaganda. What did I call it? But it was about propaganda and how the Liberal government uses these announcements, and the banks use them too, to announce the great things that they're doing for the Black community before actually having to do it. So, and then some of these announcements actually didn't pan out.
Haven't come to fruition. Like
so
Michelle Baptiste says, actions speak louder than words.
But that's where it's not actually true, because the words get people reelected. The words get people pat on the back. I did a study and looked at RBC's stock price. So when George Floyd happened and they announced that, I think it was in June of 2020, they announced they're going to commit $100 million to the Black community. Their stock price has gone up around 15 to 20%. So RBC got a benefit. And again, all of that, of course, isn't only about what they're doing for the Black community. Other factors take into account. But they saw an increase in their value without having to put out any money for 6 to 8 months. So in those 8 months, they were seen as leaders in diversity and inclusion, supporting the Black community without actually having to do anything. These are things that we have to watch for to say who is benefiting from all these announcements, really follow the money and say, if they committed X amount, are they actually dispersing X amount? And I'll say dispersing because that word is really important. There was a study done in the US where, by the plug, where they looked at all the commitments, all the pledges that were given by all these companies and how much of it actually flowed. There's billions of dollars committed. I think it was close to 50 to 60 billion dollars that was committed specifically because of what happened with the tragedies. And then a I feel 5% of that actually flowed out. If we are like logical human beings, if I say to you, hey, I'm gonna give you $100 tomorrow, and I show up with 20 cents, you are gonna be upset about that. For some reason, the Black community, when we tell them, hey, I promise you $100, and people show up with 20 cents, even $20, somehow we're good. We just eat it. And we're like, oh, hey, God will get me the rest. It's like, no, like we have to get very specific about how we're being used and leverage our worth. We're letting people use us for their own PR. Their own words are getting them a lot of publicity, and there's no action behind it. So we're not getting anything out of it. And so again, I feel 2022 is this year of filtering, was a year of filtering to really identify. I have my spreadsheet that red, yellow, green. It's like entities that make promises and kept them, green, entities that make promises and they're in process, yellow, entities that made process and did nothing, red. And it was great with what the Black North Initiative did was help me create that spreadsheet to say these 500 plus organizations have now signed a CEO pledge to commit X amount of actions in dollars. We can now analyze it, and the Globe and Mail analyzed it twice.
Two
And
years in a row. Yep.
2 years in a row, and it was not a good analysis. So it's not me talking; it's researchers at this media outlet
who are non-melanated,
and
probably.
and they've dug into all the government programs too for Black communities because they don't want to see favoritism towards us, even though the Black community needs it more as much as anybody else, even or more so. They don't want to see that type of favoritism because I've seen in the comments, and it's amazing when you see in the comments people from the white community um, disrespect and disregard anything that's Black focused. So there's people that exist in 2022, now 2023, that don't want to see specific supports for the Black community. So this is what we're up against. So when we're up against fake symbolism, when we're up against people not wanting to support specifically the Black community, these are fights that are layering on and it gets very difficult to navigate. But we can't accept less than what we're worth. And I feel like we've gotten complacent and it takes a little bit to quiet us. And I think it should be the opposite.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
I think that I think that we as the people have to hold organizations accountable.
Yes. And so that sparked in my mind when you were talking earlier around when we ask each other, okay, what impact happened, or how was the Black community portrayed in media? What scorecard do we use?
There
What
you
is
go.
there that we can measure against to say, hey, certain amount of dollars earned in the Black community? Okay, A, B, C, D. A certain amount of board positions. Like that's kind of the stance that Black North has taken, trying to elevate more Black people into board positions. Okay, what grade and what are we measuring against? What amount of entrepreneurs had started? How many of them increased their revenue? All these elements across all the themes. There's nothing that we use. So we're literally guessing. And Louis March keeps saying we use less than 1% towards analysts, analyzing, and impact measurement. So there's nobody that's taken up the charge to create a framework for us to hold each other accountable. So we can say it and it's necessary, but now we have to get into how do we do it.
Well, I think that there's so many layers, and like I said, we're going to do a part 2 on this because the melanated Canada doesn't revolve in the minds of myself and Ryan, and
Yes.
I like to get diverse thoughts or opinions. So as Ryan is sharing, I'm gathering a list of people potentially, and I'm going to start doing it from tonight to hopefully
Nice.
have on this conversation to give their impact, their takes. I think that I'm concerned about the melanated people first. What we have to do,
right?
What we have to do, because other cultures take care of themselves first.
Yes,
And I don't blame
100%.
them. I don't blame them. I don't blame them. And then, right. So what can we do to take care of ourselves better going forward? You know, I strongly believe that anyone who's watching this, whether you're melanated or not, you gotta, wealth, there's health, wealth, and relationships. If there's anything I can say for 2023, I want people to really take a look. What is your status when it comes to your health, mentally, emotionally, physically? What is your wealth status, and what is your relationship status? If you can focus on those three things, or even just one of them, just one of them, you'll not only be ahead, but the people who you rely on you, or you rely on them, or whatever, will be farther ahead. Because I think we're somewhat post-pandemic now, and my question would be, is Black Canada further ahead now than it was before the pandemic?
And Dr. Claude Anderson would say no, 0.5% of wealth, and all the different factors that we might, like you said, health, wealth, and what was the third one?
Relationships.
And relationships. Well, maybe relationships have gotten better, but health, I haven't seen any statistics that said our health got better. And wealth, I haven't seen any statistics that say our wealth got better. So either we're in the same position we were a year ago, or we've gone backwards. And to me, that is not good enough. We have to not be okay with that.
So, question. So, Ryan, how much time do you have?
I'm good for 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. Cesar says he's coming now. It must have went to his spam. So we'll get Cesar for a few minutes, and then we're gonna do a part 2 next week. Everybody, he says he's coming now. So we're gonna and if there's any people that you feel that should be on this panel, we're going to generate next week. Like I said, as soon as this conversation ends, I'm going to be coming out. I'm going to be messaging people from now, say next week we're doing this. So we have a panel. Like I'm looking at people from the East. I'm looking at people from the West.
And the beautiful thing about our platform and when we do our show is when people push back and they say, you know what, Ryan, actually what you said in this area of the Black community isn't true. There are people doing XYZ. That to me is a win. Now I can say, great, let me go and help them or work with them.
Not only it's one thing to tell us the people, but tell us who they are.
It can't be no blanket statement. It's like,
so we have Cesar, no worries, Cesar, and
Happy New Year, brother.
Thank you for coming on. And the thing is, don't worry, we're going to do a part 2 next week.
That works. My apologies, Dr. Vibe. Thank you so much for. I don't know how to explain the links were showing up in my spams. That's where they were all at. So
no problem. But Cesar is a regular friend of Black Canada Talking, and a regular friend of many. Like I said, there are many people in the United States that love this man and what he has to share.
Awesome. Yeah.
They love this man, what he has to share. Cesar, we'll go probably for another 15, 20 minutes of bonus time. But next week, just put aside, we're going to do a round 2. And I'm going to, and also, if there are any people that you feel should be part of this conversation for next week, please tell me from after the show now so we can work on getting them out so we can get a wide perspective.
Nice.
So, Cesar, when you look at Black Canada 2022 on the first day of 2023, what are some of your thoughts?
That's an excellent question. If I could very quickly, 30 seconds. First of all, happy Independence Day to our Haitian people and Subjumu, just as well as many other African countries who got out of colonization. Notice, out of colonization on some January 1st, 1960. So, and for our spiritual Kemet people, it's the year 6259 since ancient Kemet. And as I say this, I give my salutations. I often criticize entertainment, aka toxic entertainment, but I give my salutation to our brother, Kevin Hart. Short in stature, but big heart, because the brother is getting a lot of vicious backlash in Egypt right now, because he did say online how, he said a very strong comment about how ancient Egypt, Kemet, was a land of black people. And of course, he's being canceled in Egypt and called out. So this is the type of entertainment
Oh, wow.
that is
That's
here.
amazing.
So there you go. So just wanted to make sure that I put that in there.
Sure.
Now, to answer your question, Dr. Vibe, I think 2022 was an amazing year. And I say this, of course, the more you pay attention to these socio-political and economical issues, the more one finds a lot of connections that impact us. I don't really know in which way to start, because there are so many elements, but one thing that I could definitely say, uh, I could almost say that the political shift that has happened on one side, the NDP and Liberal alliance, the impact it can have for Black people, notably in terms of health care, for reaching out the most vulnerable. Let us be honest, Black people tend to be at the bottom of statistics. So this is something that, let's hope, will benefit Black people beyond a matter of just speaking of dental care. As we're speaking about 2023, in Canada, the new tax in terms of home ownership, I hope it will go further than that in terms of helping to address the housing crisis. But when I say housing, I'm not just talking in terms of owning. I'm also talking in terms of people being able to be given assistance for renting, for finding places, because let's be honest, if they're coming from Ukraine, there's always a place for them. But if the Jamaicans in Toronto, or Haitians in Montreal, or Africans from left to right, they struggle. So this is one thing I think very important for us to say. In terms of consciousness, for Black consciousness, 2022, two um, two important events happened. Actually, three important events happened. They were not directly geared towards Black people. But I hope whoever Black is paying attention to this, even beyond Canada, the falsely called Freedom Convoy, the visit of the Pope, and the death of the British Queen Elizabeth
Wow,
II.
wow. Well, we just that's high level, because we got to go next week. Has got to be into that, because we
Mm.
can't. We got, but Cesar, make sure you have those points written down for next week, because we're gonna
Oh,
go deep.
100%.
Yeah,
That's gonna be
But
deep.
I'm curious, like, do you link the three, or just saying like those three were really key milestone events?
they are absolutely linked. They are
Okay.
absolutely linked.
I'm
Even if
curious your thoughts on that.
directly on the surface, it doesn't seem to be like, how does it concern us, Black people? You see what I mean? But if you go down the layers, it directly concerns us. Dr. Vibe, do I have like 2 3 minutes to delve?
No, you get no. Take your time, man. Take your time.
Let us be honest. Let us be very honest here. When we look at the falsely called Freedom Convoy, and I don't say this as a kind of mockery to those who participate or those who believe in it, but when Black people, we talk about freedom something, either people have died, or people might die, or people will die. Those freedom convoyers who were playing hockey and having a bathtub in front of the parliament, occupying Ottawa downtown for 3 weeks. Trust me, falsely called Freedom Convoy. So this is where it links to Black people. Do we live in a society now in 2023, January 1st? Do we live in a society where, as Black people, we can imagine ourselves doing those type of behaviors and coming out of there unharmed? Are leaders of the so-called convoy still being alive today? Fred Hampton got killed for far less in his bed with his pregnant girlfriend. So many black leaders have died for so far less in Africa, in,
Right.
in the Americas. When we look at the visit of the Pope, it's for the indigenous people. I am not indigenous of this land. I will not have the audacity of speaking on behalf of indigenous people. But beyond even the matter of did he actually seek an apology? We have to remember a little detail here. This Pope was actually supposed to go to Congo. He didn't go to Congo, he came to Canada. People from Congo got very offended. Apparently, he planned another trip to go there, but now his the previous Pope, Benedict XVI, aka the one who protected pedophile priests, by the way, just passed away. So I think it's important for us as we speak of the 21st century, as we speak of Black Lives Matter, as we speak of the awakening into our blackness, of embracing our blackness. That visit of the Pope and the way many indigenous people felt that it was more of communications, photo thing, even when he was given that headdress. As Black people, how is it that we hate everything about
Right.
slavery and colonization except Jesus and Allah? We
Ah,
must dare to have those conversations, because guess what? You know those missionaries and all the things they did, residential schools and all that? Why do you think the vast majority of leaders of African independence, how come they spoke French? How come they spoke English? Where did they
right.
learn? It was in residential schools. The same things that happen here also happen in Africa, also happen in Oceania, notably Australia, till the late 60s and early 70s. To dark-skinned people who look like us and were treated as inferiors. I mean, the Les Pères Blancs, the white fathers, they were not accidentally called the white fathers for a reason in the middle of a bunch of Black people in the jungles and
Right.
savannas of Africa.
The same playbook.
The same playbook,
Mm.
absolutely. The third element in terms of the death of Queen Elizabeth II. So first and foremost, I sympathize, like I said, for her family. This, beyond being a queen, she's first a mother and a grandmother. I sympathize. However, in terms of symbolism, she was the head, the heir, the representative of an oppressive regime which for hundreds of years have oppressed people worldwide, notably Black people.
Mm.
Interestingly, her previous namesake, Elizabeth I, was not for the slave trade at first, but she became convinced because of the financial interest that the Spanish were racking, and as such,
Right.
he changed her mind, and as well, you adapt the religion and the ideology to make it fit. Now that I've said that, we must recognize something here. When Barbados rejected the Commonwealth to become truly independent, basically rejecting Elizabeth as head of state, it has to be a broader conversation in terms of so many African and Caribbean countries will try to justify with our weak leaders that it is economically and geostrategically beneficial to be under the helm. I don't want to say the boot. Let's not try to be purposely offensive. Under the helm of Great Britain.
Ah,
Meanwhile, we have people in Scotland, white people in Scotland. We have people in Ireland who are trying to get out of the colonization because they are colonized as well.
yep.
The real name of the country is England. Great Britain is a colonial creation. Why is it that us, we still have Black countries? I mean, we're speaking English right now, but we have
Mm.
Black countries and leaders who are justifying still being part and maintaining this oppressive, this historically anti-Black, anti-non-white, non-Christian systems of dominance. Because at the end of the day, you can call it a system of cooperation, you can call it a system of mutual support, etc., etc. Nobody thinks of the Commonwealth and thinks of Nigeria or Jamaica at the head of it.
Ah,
And even as you have right now a British Prime Minister of Indian descent, Rishi Sunak,
mm.
nobody thinks of Great Britain in regards to him or in regards to the mayor of London, who is of Pakistani or Indian descent. It's still a very white Christian thought. It's the symbolism, the ideology that it reflects. So as we move in 2023, I really hope our Black people further continues the awakening. White people talk about being woke as an insult, as a derogatory term. They don't know what it means. It's not for
Right.
them to have that conversation. When I'm there with whites in conferences, in trainings, and all that, I always tell them, don't talk about being woke. You're not woke. This is not your language. Us as Black people, let us continue to awaken, but really to return to our true self in order to advance further to our greater self, kind of like the Sankofa bird. So that's really where I'm at this point.
And
That's
I'm
very
so curious because you mentioned the British Prime Minister, and similar to, are you seeing similarities between are Indians in Britain now thinking they're going to get further ahead because he's in place? How Black community thought we were going to get further ahead because Barack Obama was in place in the U.S. Or are they more aware that that doesn't mean shit? This person is like an indoctrinated Brit. I mean, when he opened his mouth, I was like, man, this guy he is pure Britain.
my
So I'm
brother.
curious your thoughts on.
That is an excellent question to which I will reply to you with an even better example, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Let
yeah.
us go to 19th century Victorian England, where there was a prime minister by the name of Benjamin Disraeli. As you can hear by the name, a Jewish man who became prime minister. So what we have to understand is that the nature of democracy in the Western world does make it possible that you can have a Black person, an Indian, a Jewish, a woman as head of the state.
Mm,
Uh, if we are to be even further honest, we talk about Barack Obama, President of the United States under the Democratic Party,
mm.
but at the same time, there was actually a Black leader of the Republican Party, Michael Steele. Yet we see how the people in the Republican Party are. I mean, the difference is Republicans are openly racist
Mm,
under claims of no discrimination. It's all about your chances and all that, whatever. No, openly racist. Democrats are covert racist.
mm.
For many of them, of course, I'm not saying every Republican or every Democrat is racist, but if you're Black, you understand what I mean. When we look at the nature of Western democracy, yes, it absolutely makes it that anyone does have a chance to get at the head of the state. It's a game of democratic power. I remember it was, I think, in summer 2022, so a couple of months ago, I was made fun of by Indians because I was actually online arguing that, yes, Rishi Sunak can become prime minister. He got defeated the first
Wow.
time.
Okay.
Indians were laughing at me. I'm not going to fight against them.
Uh,
They're Indians. Rishi Sunak is Indian. It's not my battle. But guess what happened a few months later? Because of the nature of the game. Now, when we talk about the people, what it does is that it can convince indeed people that it can improve their faith. And this is where, in all the criticism, very justified against Obama in regards to what did he really do for Black people? What did he really do for Africa? I can agree to all that criticism, and we can definitely talk about how he actually contributed to the murder of Gaddafi and the disintegration of safety in the Sahel in Africa. Yes.
mm.
However, we have to be fair. In terms of symbolism, Obama contributed to many Black people, especially youth and children, to see themselves being beyond entertainers, being beyond stereotypes, because they can see there is a Black man at the head of the state. So just as you can have with Jewish people, whether we talk about prime ministers such as Disraeli, or we talk about, even we people will want to take it in terms of anti-Semitism, as Jewish heads in terms of the education sector, finances, etc., entertainment. The same can happen with people of Indo-Pakistani descent.
Right.
But does that really change the nature of society? Anti-Semitism is still very well and alive, including in Great Britain.
Mm.
Anti-black racism. Obama was there, being president of a nation in which many newspapers were referring to him by the N-word and calling him a monkey.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so all of these elements come into play. At the end of the day, we take, what we can take to improve our faith, but ultimately the work is among us for us, not to wait for some dark skinned person at the head of state, because more often than not, the nature of the system makes it that the institution is stronger than the individual. So you can have a dark skinned face, but the
Yep.
institution remains white in terms of white supremacy in behaviors, in mindset, and in action.
And
All
that
right,
was
we're gonna cut it right there
all
because we're gonna
right.
cut it right there. We're gonna cut it right there because we got a part 2 happening next week. We went into
Cool.
bonus time. We're gonna cut it right there. So everyone who's watching this is part 1. As I said, we're going to diligently get a number of different faces on your monitor next week, and we'll make this happen. Hopefully, well, Cesar, you're warning now, and I'm gonna once I email you, I'm gonna say check your junk mail, and,
Yes.
and Ryan. But Cesar, if
Same.
people want to get, so Ryan, I'll let you have last Cesar. If people want to get in contact with you, what is the best way?
Reach me out on Facebook, my people. Reach me out on Facebook, Cesar Remy, Rimy. And of course, email, how do you call that? Website, Roots and Culture Canada. No
Okay,
problem. North South Development, Roots and Culture Canada.
Ryan, last word. Is this the best way people call it? Just there? I had it there.
Absolutely. The website, acbncanada.com. And find me on LinkedIn, very active on LinkedIn, but it's Ryan O'Neill Knight. So Oneil, Ryan O'Neill Knight. Find me on LinkedIn.
All right, fantastic, gentlemen. We'll see you both next week, and if you want to help, we'll see you in the green room in just a moment. All right, everybody. So we're going to be back with this conversation next Sunday. So wherever you are watching this, it'll be on again next week. Now, make sure that again, you take some time to subscribe and like the Dr. Vibe Show, especially on YouTube. We are now over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we're going strong. So when you subscribe on YouTube, also push subscribe and notifications so you get notified. So you'll know when this conversation is coming up for next week. I'm going to actually put it up there in the next 24 hours so you get notified. We're going to have round 2 next week. Next up, like it on Facebook. So a few last things before we sign off for today. You can watch replays of Black Canada Talking at the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Also, you can go to my website, the drvibeshow.com. If you want to contact me, the website, there's my email address, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. On YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, the Dr. Vibe Show. Twitter at drvibeshow, and Instagram at the drvibeshow. If you'd like to, you can promote your business or your service on this show. We're growing. We got the type of viewership that you want, or the type of people that you want to promote your business or service to, as long as it's aligned. So, gonna leave it with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Gonna leave with a few quick last words for everyone in 2023. Again, health, wealth, and relationships. Strive to be your best health, mentally, physically, emotionally. Wealth. Do you have a wealth plan in effect for your future and especially others' futures? And then relationships. Do you have solid relationships? If there's 3 areas I'd like melanated people to look at, just keeping it small: health, wealth, and relationships. If you can just focus on those 3, or even one of those, you're going to be great. Next up, a quote for you. Simple is smooth, and smooth gets it done. Simple is smooth, and smooth gets it done. So we'll end off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions. They aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace. We will see you back next Sunday, same time, same channel. Tell all your friends about it. And we're going to be back big panel next week. That's what I'm working on, a big panel next week. Remember to give yourself grace and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. God bless, peace, well, keep the faith, and walk good in 2023.